time you don't know wrestling, this man has held 6 different belts. The only team to win all 3 major belts, the Crockett Cup. This man's a legend in his
How am I not going to like this guy, right? He knows everything.
Now, I want to ask you one question.
Welcome to another edition of Hero Television. I'm your host, P.L. Myers, along with the other host, John G. And today we are honored and blessed to have Pastor Freddie. Thank you so much for letting us come out to what you're doing. It's so special here tonight in Chicago.
Well, we feel the same. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. A little bit chilly this evening, but it is an active place, too, at this time of the day.
For the viewers out there that are seeing this for the very first time, where is your ministry located?
We pastor a church, a charismatic church in Palos Heights, and we have for like 18 years. But we serve here in the city. We minister in South Shore, Pilsen, Humboldt Park, Back of the Yards, and let me think, one other neighborhood. So we're a suburban church, but we really try to engage the city.
And for the viewers out there, you know, everyone wants to know sometimes, you know, about how you get into a profession, and your profession is a greater calling than anyone else has. Some people get inspired by their family members, or my family was in it, or, you know, firefighters, police officers, but, you know, to have the calling that you have, what made you want to follow this path that you're on right now?
Yeah, you know, I think I always knew that I would. Then I had a few years of being rebellious, sowing my wild oats, and at one time I had long blonde hair and a ponytail, and it was kind of rough. But yeah, I've known it most of my life. Knew that I would.
And when did you just take that path to go down where you're doing now as far as ministry?
Yeah, probably about 18 years old, something like that, at 19, and settled down.
And the thing is, when you decided to get into the ministry, what was the biggest maybe misconception that when you got into it? Because some people, you know, they follow a job they always want to do, but when they get into it, they go, I never knew about this, or this is the hard part of it.
Yeah, I always thought that God used called perfect people. So I never did think that I would measure up enough, and you know, that because I looked up to ministers so highly, and I just thought that everyone, you know, they were just perfect individuals, that you didn't have flaws. That's not the case, because I'm a flawed person.
We're very flawed people.
I understand.
Now, you told us earlier you're originally from West Virginia. How did you end up in Chicago?
Yeah, and of course there's 1.5 million people in West Virginia, and 3 million here in Chicago. But we came here 18 years ago to be the senior associate pastor at a large suburban church. And then after about a year, the direction changed, and we started doing a home Bible study, and that home Bible study just started growing. And somebody suggested, well, let's start a church. I said, I'm not interested in starting a church, but let's do one public service. And so we had one Sunday at a Holiday Inn in Oaklawn on 95th Street, and we had 178 people that first Sunday. Wow. And then it just it took off from there. That's 18 years ago. I had hair when we moved here.
Now, when you say, you know, we started the service, what exactly, we have an idea of what goes on here?
Well, what we're doing here?
Yes, sir.
Well, we partner with the night ministry, and the night ministry has been in existence 40-some years. They arrive with their bus that does basic medical care, some counseling, social services, and they go to some of the worst neighborhoods in Chicago. Well, they provide meals, and most of the groups that help them provide bagged lunches, and which that's fine, but we do actual meals. Like tonight, you can probably see over my shoulder the group that's already there. Tonight, they're getting chicken casserole, green beans, corn, and rolls, and a drink and dessert. So they're getting a full meal. We're into, I think, our 13,000th meal this week.
And you said that it hasn't started yet, I believe, tonight, but people are out here lined up well in advance.
Yeah, they anticipate it. They know the schedule, and on nights, there have been nights that I vividly remember. One was 6 degrees and the wind chill was 22 below, and they were lined up when we got here and stood in line for 30 minutes for a meal. And that night I knew that the hunger problem in Chicago was legitimate and serious. And then we had another night just shortly after that, 16 degrees, same situation, 150 people standing in line, and that's men, women, and children.
And you told us earlier, you read off a few stats. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, 70% of Chicagoans are rent challenged, and about the same number are food challenged. So the people that you see in this line behind me, this will probably be the only meal of the day for most of them. And so this isn't essential. This isn't something that, it's a neat thing to do. This is providing a service. And so there will be people that will go home and sit down, and this will be their meal of the day.
And because you do so much, you inspire so many people. I mean, we talked to a lot of your part of your church, but what keeps you motivated? Because there are times where you have the highs, where you get the hugs and the thank yous, and then you get the lows like, am I making a difference? That must go through your mind. What keeps you motivated?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I honestly think the faces of the children, and especially how that they've known us, because we've been doing this almost 4 years, and at first the children would walk through and be a little bit embarrassed. They're no longer embarrassed. They see our warm faces, the warm welcome. So I think for me, really, probably the faces of the children, and some of the senior citizens that seem feeble. They have told us that this is the high point of their week, that they look forward to this. So that kind of is my motivation.
And for someone that motivates people, and you have to get up and you give the sermons to keep people going, but besides motivating, keeps you busy, but who were your heroes growing up?
Oh, well, that's a good question. My dad did this, and I wasn't all that conscious or thinking about it for years, but growing up, my dad did this, and I have run into people over the years who would find out what my name was, and my dad has the same name, Freddie Steele, and they would say, hey, your dad provided our Thanksgiving dinner one year when the coal mines were on strike, or your dad provided our Christmas one year when the coal mines were on strike. And Dad was probably the main inspiration.
And with everything going on in the world, especially through these tough times right now, is it hard to keep the faith sometimes with the people from your church, and how do you keep them kind of like almost like motivated and on that path, because there's a lot of us want to give up sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you keep your heart clean. You can look at things that the cup is half full or it's half empty. And what I've encountered and what I keep before our church is that people are open and receptive. Now, initially they may come across with a rough facade. They might look like they're upset or having a bad day. Don't respond in kind, because and to be honest with you, from my perspective, the relationship between the races in Chicago, it's getting better. I see. So for me, the cup is not half full. It's half empty. It's half full.
No, I want you to give the information for the website you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
But I also want to know if people want to help. They don't necessarily want to commit every week. Is there what could the average person do to help on any level?
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Our website gives you several different options of how to get involved and help support us, and that's compassion2action.com, and it's compassion2action.com, and we have people that give financially, small amounts mostly, and in cold weather we have there's a church in Oaklawn. There's a group of retired ladies. They knit blankets and things like that, and that goes a long way. We have some groups that prepare desserts like cupcakes. So now we're doubling our efforts, and we are willing to partner with another group that would want to help work with the cooking, etc. Because we're trying to do more as the opportunities present themselves.
And when you say we, approximately how many people are in your basic core staff, if you will?
That's involved in this, probably 10.
So
Yeah.
10 people handle all this and get it done in all
Right.
these areas.
Right, and my wife does most of the cooking. So, like I said, tonight 150 people are getting a chicken casserole, and today's her day off, and she takes the day off and does that, and does it joyfully. She grew up with 11 children in the family, so she's accustomed to cooking for large groups.
Well, she's accustomed to cooking for large groups, not quite 150.
No,
but
150, yes.
And would you get approximately the same number? You had mentioned going to other places. Is it about the same number in all these places?
Yeah, it does work out to be about the same. And at back of the yards, though, we have a larger number of children. About 40 of that number would be children. And what's interesting with that, and I get choked up thinking about it even now, when they get their meal, they don't go home and eat it. They'll open up the box right there, sit down, and they'll get busy eating their meal immediately. And that just shouldn't be. That shouldn't be in a city like ours.
And with your ministry and everything that you do, as you can see the line out there coming in there. But what are your goals for the next few years? Because not only ministering your church, you're doing things like this. What are your goals for the next
I
year?
appreciate that. Several. One is there are 11,000 unaccompanied homeless youth on the streets of Chicago, and a lot of them are LGBTQ. So during the cold season, they won't go into a shelter because they'll be victimized. So one of my goals is to this winter have a bus that has a prefixed route where we're able to know where they are and make this route and call it a warming station, and they can get on the bus and be warm for a few hours because they're not going to go. They're not going to leave their shelter or go into a shelter, and they're not going to leave their belongings. We also are working with a center for women and children who are victims of domestic violence in West Englewood. So we're working on helping them get 20 bunk beds. And then we're also hoping to be able to engage some of the young men in an educational program. The ones that we've come to know over the years and know that they're plight in their situation, that are wanting to do better. We're hoping to get them engaged in a trade or education.
And I think the two biggest questions that probably cross your path every day is do you see the people's their faith tested every day, and almost like why, and that must be the toughest question that people ask you every day, because it's not just the homelessness situation, it's someone having cancer or other thing else, and how do you look at someone and have the answer, because they look to you for the answer, and what do you do? How do you, the hope you give them? I mean, it's just astounding.
Well, I very rarely meet people who will articulate with a bad attitude that they're down.
Yeah.
People have great attitudes, and but what I do is I believe that God is. Somebody asked the question, if God's good, well, then why do so many bad things happen to people? Well, God is affected by that. He doesn't like to see that, but I still believe that God is a God that heals. He loves people. He's not vindictive. He's not mean. He's for us and not against us. So I think sometimes that's where I come in. I believe in the power of prayer, that God heals. He performs miracles. He can put homes back together. He can heal bodies. He can heal minds. He can heal people of addictions. So that's a huge part of who we are. We're a charismatic church, which means that we still believe that in something called the gifts of the Spirit. So we've seen people healed, and which are answers to prayer. So we do the social services, but really, to some degree, the bigger part of who we are is that faith component that you're talking about.
And that faith that must be really tested with the people out there, because they're probably going, it's tough out here. They always say, the poor, it will be the rich when they get to heaven. I mean, I'm guessing a lot of people out here are going, where's my hope? Is there a heaven? And, it must be tough to, find out the right answers to give them.
I'm finding more faith than hopelessness. It's amazing that they seem resilient, and but I think we come in with how to maybe boost their faith. They have faith. It's interesting. I mean, where we go, the different neighborhoods have different ethnicities. Here, it's mostly African American. When you get to Humboldt Park, it's mostly Puerto Rican. When you get to Pilsen, it's mostly Hispanic. But you find faith. And they'll tell you some stories about that will just shock you with how they've endured. But I think where we come in is helping to boost their faith, to present to them how gracious, good, generous that God is. Let's just believe a little bit harder or go a little bit further with our faith and see what God can do. And they respond positively to it.
So what message would you have if you could say one thing to all the people out there? What message would you say?
Well, that's easy. I think that every one of us have the ability to positively affect one person every day of our life. Don't ever underestimate the power of your smile, the power of a pat on the back, the handshake. And my motto of life is make things better. Wherever you go, you have the ability to I think, positively impact somebody's life. Everybody's fighting a battle of some kind, and we can be a light. And so that would be my hope for everybody, just to don't live under the circumstances. Just get above it, and don't react to people. Respond. And when you respond, it's amazing. People respond in kind, and which is in a positive way.
And one more time, the website up, please.
Compassion2action.com, and that's compassion, the number 2action.com.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us, and thank you for being a motivational, spiritual factor in Hero, because in your profession, ministers get a lot of, they always look for the bad side of it. Sure. It's like, what's the angle? What am I doing this for? And, and the thing is, for you to do what you do and make such an impact to women, children, seniors, adults, I mean, it's there's no words. That's why we had to come out. So thank you for being a true hero and inspiration to all these people in Chicago. We wish you nothing but the best, and get on the website, make a difference. If one person can do it, anyone can make a difference. We're right back with more of Hero Television.
I'm firefighter Brandon Santiago, and you're watching HeroTV.
Welcome back to Hero Television. We're here, Southside Chicago, on a beautiful day here, and a little windy, but we are here again we have two Johns, my co-host John G. and John Hylka. John, thank you again for letting us come by for this.
Thank you.
And for the viewers out there, on a beautiful night, you could be home, you could be relaxing, you could be at work, but here on the South Side, you're helping the homeless. And what made you decide to go to that path of giving? Because people all the time want to help out, but actually they say it's like going to the gym. I'm going to go work out today, but to actually do this.
Right. Pastor actually started it, and then I've been coming for about 6 months, and the first time I came out here to see the children out here just waiting in line for their meal, I mean, it's humbling enough to see the moms and dads out here struggling, but to see a 6-year-old or a 2-year-old, one day a mom had the infant in the crib, or not the crib, the stroller, and it was like the pastor was saying, like 6 degrees, and she was out there, and that was their only meal. And we went to another location, and we gave them tents, and I went home crying after that, because it put into perspective what I have compared to what these guys behind me don't have. and it's very humbling to see these guys like this.
And that must really give you a whole different perspective on everything, because
Yes,
it's like someone that gets sick or something. They had give them a different perspective. But I mean, what was the biggest misconception that you think people have when they think of what you do and what the minister does sometimes? Because as I said, a lot of misconceptions like, oh, you just come here you go, here's some food. But no, you're giving them meals, you're giving them, helping with health and all these things.
Right. When the bus is here, they do the medical, and that's even tearful. Just watch them come up and treat the people that have possible HIV or maybe pregnancies, for young teen women's. Me personally is very painful because pastors guided me through a couple of tough times with my sister and all that, but I found him about a year ago. I just used to drop one of my friends off to church, and then one day I said, I'm staying, I'm going in, I need it. And it was the best hour-long sermon that he did. It relieved me stress-wise, headache-wise, and I've been going back whenever I get a chance outside of work.
Now, when you come to, you said it was a humbling, that you come here and you see, there's sad stories
Mm-hmm.
here. When you go home at night, do you sometimes question what this is all about?
Yes. In fact, the one day when it was 60 degrees out and they were outside sleeping and the temperature dropped to 40s, I turned off the heat in my apartment that day. I slept with the windows open and everything to experience what they were doing, but I was still inside a building, so it wasn't as cold, but I did that just because of watching them, and I was like, man, I don't want to be like that. And it is very, very sad to see so many people out here struggling. We go to some neighborhoods that they're in cardboard boxes or pop-up tents, or we went to one area that they had just air mattresses, nothing else protecting them, and the outside and elements here is brutal.
And you've mentioned a bunch of different areas. I grew up not too far from on the east side of Chicago. Maybe I was just oblivious. Like, I have no idea that, as growing up, there's things like this in every neighborhood.
Yes.
You guys are doing this all over.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about, how far it stretches?
We go to 22nd and Loomis, that's the Pilsen area. We go to the back of the yards, 51st and Halstead. We come here on Mondays. He goes to 119th and Princeton, which is further east and a lot more dangerous neighborhood. When it gets dark out, we are, the minority. This is one of the hardest hits. One sermon, he was out here. The next day there was a shooting where 5 kids were shot dead, and one of them happened to be right across the street. And it's like, it puts it in a perspective that the night before we were out here feeding these people, and unfortunately one of the little girls that we did fed that night, she passed away because she got shot. So it puts a lot of thinking and, puts it in perspective.
So how do you keep the faith? How do you keep going?
It's tough, but through Pastor, he's talked to me a lot over the phone, sent me text and just assured me that God is with me and things are going to be good, and especially getting me through. My sister, she has ALS, and not to bring it up with her, but she's one of the reasons why I come out here, because if he can sacrifice a Monday and a Thursday to come out and feed people, he can talk to me and get me through my situation, and it's just been an incredible adventure.
And especially what you do. I mean, this is on a Monday night and other nights that you do it. I think you do it on Thursday nights.
Correct.
The first and third Monday, and then the second and fourth
Thursday. Correct. Yep.
And when you do that, you have your job, your personal life, and stuff like this. It must have, when that light switch must have went on, that come on and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. What you get back must be tenfold.
It is, and I would sacrifice my whole check just to give more to these people than what I do. The meal is a small price for what these people need. I go to the dollar store and I buy the personal hygiene products, the toothpaste, the shampoos and stuff, and I bring them and we give that to them in a little Ziploc bag. So they have some shampoo and toothbrush and stuff.
And people might not realize, this is the cost of what it takes financially just on his, from the churches, what you guys raise, but also personally, time and effort. Just one night must cost hundreds of dollars.
Oh yeah, the food alone, I think tonight's meal was going to be close to $300 that was put in for tonight. That's not counting the, her prep time that she's not getting paid for. It's just, give back just this little bit. We wish we can give back more.
And for people that want to donate again, what's the best way to do it?
Go to our website, Compassion to Action, and that's the number 2, compassion2action.com.
Well, John, all I can say is thank you so much for letting us come out here, and a true inspiration, to do what you do, and also Pastor Freddie. I mean, it's amazing. This goes on every day, and it's not just one neighborhood, 2 neighborhoods, and John and I are so lucky to be out here to cover this for you, and we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much for coming.
John.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll be back with more of Hero Television.
Hi, I'm Elliot Serrano, and you're watching Hero TV.
Touched on it a little bit. The wrestling thing is always amazing at your show. You'll announce a big time wrestler. I think the first one you had was Piper, right?
Piper, yeah.
But he did have a horror tie-in. Then you brought in like a Mick Foley or a Dallas Page, and you guys get a little backlash, unfair backlash, I think, for bringing in wrestlers. But make a statement. I see the lines out there. I see why you would bring them in.
Well, we did Shawn Michaels like 2 years ago, and I made a video. I got on my phone, and I said, why is it that Days of the Dead brings wrestlers? Fans don't want wrestlers. Well, let's find out. So I walked through the line. The video is literally like 8.5 minutes long of me just walking the line. And, what was, I think, most interesting to me is that 80% of the people in line had Phantasm shirts, had Halloween shirts, had Suspiria shirts, had Evil Dead shirts. It was horror fans. So I think that a lot of times, the fans on the internet and the fans that come to the shows aren't necessarily the same. You'll get a half dozen people every time you announce a wrestler. Well, what do they have to do with horror?
Exactly.
Well,
right.
Maybe nothing, but we like them, and fans like them. So guess what? They're here. And the wrestlers are always some of the most nicest, generous people that we have at our shows. And, like you said, the lines speak for themselves,
The lines prove you're right, my friend.
Yeah,
I see it countless times. You probably had 20 wrestlers here at least over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sprinkle about 3 or 4 a show. Sometimes one less, sometimes one more, depending on just how it plays out. But, we've had Sting, who was phenomenal. Ric Flair has always been real well received. You mentioned Foley. Bret Hart, Piper, and they always go over really well. So, unfortunately, if it's not somebody's interest, they feel let down, and sometimes people are very vocal about it, but that's why we book 30 guests. Right. That's why we book a variety of guests, because not everybody's going to like everything.
Right. Now, you guys do something interesting. You guys started charity work.
Yeah.
In conjunction. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Last year, we actually started a charity called More Grains, and what we do, it's real simple. We just collect donations in the form of canned goods, non-perishable items for humans and pets. And just the reasoning behind it was, I kind of like grew up being like the person that not a lot of people listen to, and feeling kind of disregarded, which I think a lot of our fans might have felt as well growing up, and that's why we all sort of gravitated to the horror scene. We gravitated to something that made sense for us at the time, and that's why we have that strong sense of community. But it just felt like more and more people are paying attention to us. More and more people want to get involved in other things that we do. So I figured, while I've got the platform, let's maybe do something right. Horror fans are often rather maligned,